Mr. Morley, you actually had written an article specifically addressing a whistleblower that had reports at the CIA, potentially showing information that Oswald was in Mexico City. Can you speak more to that?
I was approached a few years ago by a man who had worked inside the CIA, had a very high security clearance. And in 2018, he came to me and said he was concerned that there was a JFK assassination document that he had read while he was working at the CIA, and he was afraid that it would never become public. The man was taking considerable legal risk by talking to me. He was talking about classified or potentially classified information. So I published his story last year without his name, which is not something that I usually do. I don't like stories with anonymous sources, but I felt that it was important to get out, and he felt it was important too. I have spoken with him, and he says he is willing to come public and tell his name under his own story with assurances that he will not face legal retaliation. I hope that's something that can be arranged in the near future.
The reason that I reached out to Jefferson Morley in the first place is the following. Of course, it bothered me to hold documents in my hands that have not seen the light of day, to learn these things. But to learn, that the CIA, that 3 officers in the CIA literally orchestrated an elaborate deception of an investigative body and consequently of the American people and people all over the world, that bothered me. This IG report that I read, they wanted to know, did we fool them? They literally did a damage assessment secretly to see if anything had been revealed that should not have been revealed, that needed to be killed. Jeff, if I may just take a minute and let me describe that scene, and I'll stop. In the sanitized version, which is available online, it seems pretty innocuous. In the unsanitized version, the version that the CIA does not want you to see, he goes into great detail. One thing that Jeff didn't know until he and I spoke is none of the 3 investigative bodies ever had what's called blue badge clearance. In other words, could walk into the Central Intelligence Agency, go to the search tools and look for what they need. They never, ever did that. The agency, for the Warren Commission, for the House Select Committee, and the Assassination Records Review Board, created a SCIF, a Compartment of Information Facility, and then literally said, what would you like to see? So in the case of Blakey, he said, I want to see the Mexico City station documents. Okay, well, they knew that was coming. They had falsified them. They had literally printed and bound at their own bindery, a perfect replica, just without any of the incriminating stuff. But then this, Hawkins talks about how Blakey shows up, and he's nice. He comes in. There's a hat tree over in the corner, and he goes into great detail describing how Blakey removed his jacket, he hung it up, he removed his hat, he hung it up, and he sat down. And Hawkins described this table. They'd set out the 3 falsified Mexico City records on the left side of the table. And Hawkins literally painstakingly went into making Blakey looked like such a fool. He said literally that he took the first volume, and Hawkins said, I was standing there, I observed this. And he opened the first volume, and he thumbed through it, and he thumbed through it, and he thumbed through it, and then he set it over to the side. He picked up the second volume, same thing, thumbed through it, not asking questions, nothing, thumbed through it, sets it over to the side, picks up the last volume, thumbs through it, sets it aside, and stands up. And Hawkins cannot believe the agency's good luck. It's like, oh my God. He literally said to him, Mr. Blakey, are there any questions I can answer for you? Is there anything else I can get for you? Now, a sidebar. Anybody that does not work for the CIA would have no clue how to request the things that the agency knew it had, and they knew that Blakey didn't know. So Blakey didn't ask any questions. In the after action report then, after all of this is done, and Blakey leaves, two things happened. Number one, Blakey says, oh, I went out to the CIA and they gave me everything, which anybody who's ever been in one of those places knows that's ridiculous. But the second thing was, as I said, literally, he said, G. Robert Blakey is the most uncurious human being I've ever interacted with. And that bothered me. That's offensive. There was absolutely no question about its intention. It was an after-action, an after-action report where literally the agency went in, looked internally to see if any damage had been done whatsoever. They're talking about the photographs. They're talking about Blakey. You know, they're looking at every angle of this to see if they are vulnerable.
And they concluded that they were not. That they had
not.
Succeeded.
And clearly they did succeed, because here we are tonight, right?
Here we are tonight, and here's a JFK record that we don't have.
Correct.
Right? You saw it with your own eyes.
Yes,
okay?
I did.
We know it exists, and yet because of this secrecy system, you know, where is it? Nothing has ever compelled them to disclose it, despite a very strong law which says all government records related to the assassination have to be released, despite a presidential order saying all JFK records have to be released, and yet we still don't have it.
This is actionable intelligence. We don't have to say, well, the government did it, somehow they covered it up. I'm telling you exactly how they covered it up. The exact precise steps that they took, it's not questionable they did this. And I'm saying it here now because I do not believe that unelected officials or elected officials should be legally allowed to lie to the citizens of this country.
When you first told me this story, I thought it was important. And, you know, we talked about legal implications and all that. And I just want to commend you for coming forward and saying, whatever, people need to know this story.
Hey everybody, I wanted to call your attention to one surefire way to deepen your knowledge of the assassination of President Kennedy. And that's to read my 3 books about the CIA, a trilogy of spies that tells how the assassination actually unfolded in the eyes of CIA insiders. You see, my work on JFK's assassination is rooted not in the literature of conspiracy, but in the history of CIA operations. And that makes all the difference when it comes to understanding the events that culminated on November 22nd, 1963. You'll want to check out my 3 CIA books that tell the story of the founding generation of the Central Intelligence Agency and what 3 insiders actually thought about JFK's assassination. Meet charismatic Station Chief Winston Scott as he surveils Lee Harvey Oswald 6 weeks before Dallas. Meet urbane CIA Director Richard Helms as he fends off President Richard Nixon's attempts to blackmail him over JFK's assassination. Meet James Angleton, the ingenious, paranoid, and sinister counterintelligence chief who had controlled the agency's file on Oswald since 1959. In these books, you'll see the real historical foundation of the events that led to President Kennedy's assassination, and you'll understand this event in a much deeper way. Check out my books at jeffersonmorleybooks.com. You can buy all of these books there, as well as my other nonfiction book, Snowstorm in August. So check out the Trilogy of Spies.